Do you remember the days when you would go to school with this particular piece of literature and you would have it thrown into the dustbin or a garbage can or seized from you when you were so eager to read? I'm sure you remember those days. The comic, ladies and gentlemen. And I started off, I just told Rafi Mohammed a while ago, one of the great foundations of youth and development. And I'm going to tell you why during the course of this interview. First of all, I'd like to welcome two comic lovers like myself, Hafeez Amin and Lindsey Merritt. Good morning, folks. Hafeez.
Good morning, Hansley.
Welcome. Always good to see a comic lover. One of the things I noticed about you guys, speaking to you just a while ago, it's an infectious thing, comics. It gives you such an amiable personality.
Very much so.
First of all, let's talk about your organization, and it's obvious that you guys have a tremendous love for the comic strip.
Yeah, we do. Well, I've been collecting comics for well over 30 years, and about 15 years ago we started the Genesis Comic Collectors Club, which tried to bring together comic collectors from all over Trinidad. It grew from strength to strength until it culminated earlier this year in our hosting the very first comic convention outside of North America in this area, in the Caribbean. It was very, very well attended. So much so that a lot of people couldn't get in.
Really?
Yes, sir. So what we did, we decided we would have a second one, we would have more space, and we would have more features because people really seem to appreciate it. And it fell in with the sort of works that we do at the club because we're very much into using comic books for remedial reading and for literacy.
All right, now I'm going to come to that point in just a bit, but what sort of comics are you actually coming forward with? Not only Hulk, Spider-Man,
No.
X-Men?
We will have a full range of comics donated by the club members and also from other sources. Plus, at the con itself, we intend to launch 2 local comics, utilizing local folk themes, but done in a more 90s, year 2000 format. We're bringing the Midnight Robber, for instance, into the 21st century.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Turning him into a proper superhero. So it's not only North American comics we're pushing a lot of local stuff as well.
Have we got any sweetbread? Have we been doing that kind of thing in the past?
Of course. And as a matter of fact, we think that the local cartoonists have not had that much exposure. So what we're doing, one of the high points of this is that we have invited 3 of the best local cartoonists, Dew from The Guardian, Keithos from The Guardian, and Kalpu, who does Sweetbread at the Express, and we'll be honoring them.
That's Mahesh
Kalpu, and we'll be honoring them on the day itself.
That's fantastic. That's great news. Anyway, we're going to give you the details of that. But Lindsey, good morning once again. Welcome to all of this. What's your role with respect to Genesis?
Well, I got involved in Genesis. I've been collecting comics for about 12 years now. And so I became a member of the club. And when the club decided to get together and put on this Comicon, I was chosen as one of the organizing members.
How do you go about collecting comics? You just go to any bookstore, start buying them up? Because I think they're becoming such a rare article.
They're very scarce in Trinidad right now. And with all the devaluations we went through, they became very expensive in any outside store. Fortunately, one of my colleagues at St. Mary's told me about Hafeez when I was in Form 4. And actually, his mother carried me there and dropped me at his door. And that is how it started.
His mother, okay, so
yeah,
you guys started reading sessions, things like that, exchanging ideas about comics?
Yeah, of course. We even have some ideas to do some local books, but again, that will take some time.
Now listen, how can this play a part? We're seeing a breakdown in society, folks.
Yes.
It's happening in school, in the school system. It's almost at a stage where parents and teachers don't even seem to have the answer. I tend to agree with anyone who would come forward and say, for a young man indulging in any kind of exercise like this, especially with the reading of comics, which was prohibited at one time, may help with some kind of development. How do you see this?
Of course. When you look at you see, to begin with, comic books have gotten a bad rap over the past maybe 15, 20 years. People tend to associate all comics with the funny ones. Now, a lot of the serious comics, for instance, the Spider-Man, the Fantastic Four, the Hulks, the Superman, the Batman, they have themes which can help the individual. I prefer to call them visual novels, more so than comic books, because, as again, some of the themes that they deal with, like, right always wins. The anti-hero is important, but he doesn't always succeed. So it does a lot for the youngster reading to appreciate it. In addition, it helps with his reading skills as well.
You starting to change people's attitude, at least working towards schools in particular, placing some kind of emphasis, some kind of focus on schools to start changing the attitude towards comics and the use of comics, kids coming to school with comics?
Well, I mean, I don't know if we can do that overnight, but what we need to do is we need to get the books into the schools themselves. So what we've decided to do is any proceeds that we raise from, ventures like this, we held a barbecue, etc., we purchase comics and associated literature, like Classics Illustrated, for instance, some of the great works of the authors adapted into comic book form, and we donate them to schools, donate them to libraries within schools, so that the youngsters will have a chance to read the books. And maybe the teachers might see them reading, and it may be a positive thing.
Lindsay, what was the kind of reaction you actually got for reading comics at St. Mary's or at school?
Oh, at St. Mary's, a lot of my fellow students were into comics. Actually, when we bought Comics by Hafeez and brought it into the school, they would just rush us for the bags, and we were just sharing all the books to everybody in the class.
What about the attitude of the teachers now? How did they take to that?
Well, we didn't do it during class time, so it wasn't really a problem once you're doing it during break time or anything like that. But to go back to your previous point about the themes in the comics right now, aside from the superhero comics, you also have comics which deal with themes such as the World War II, the Holocaust. Actually, the name of the book was Mouse, which won a literary award.
A New York Literary Critics Award.
And it was written by the son of one of the survivors of the Holocaust, of telling what his father's experiences and how it changed his father and their father-son relationship. So, I mean, there are a lot more than just superhero comics out there.
Now, bearing all of this in mind and what we're saying here, that's all well and good, but why was there such a negativity towards comics?
Again, it goes back to the concept that it's all funny books, and after you read 32 pages of it, it's all gone into your brain and comes back out. But the fact is, comic books are not all Archie, and I mean no slur on people who read Archies, but comic books are not all Archie. So do I.
Yeah.
I mean, so do I. And it has to be popular to have been around for 50 years. But comic books do not begin and end with that. And as I said, I prefer to use the term visual novels because 32 pages is so much contained. It's a whole microcosm of society contained in one 32-page comic book.
Okay, that's fantastic stuff. Now let's talk about what you guys are doing. Genesis Comics presents. It's called Comicon 2 on Saturday, November 20th. Tell me about this.
Well, again, it's our second foray into the world of hosting a comic convention. The first one, as I said, was very well attended. But due to, we hit the ground running. We didn't know what to expect. So the space was limited. We hosted it also at the Holiday Inn, but the turnout was so much larger than we anticipated. So this time what we've done, we've split it into 2 rooms. We're going to have an international Japanese animation festival, which we've put into a separate room. And within the main comic convention hall itself, we're going to have a whole bunch of exhibits. The theme of the convention is celebrating 60 years of superhero comics. Because Superman was, of course, 60 years old last year.
Yeah.
Batman is 60 years old this year.
Yeah.
And so we're going to have a display. Our main focus of this con will be a display of comics from the last 60 years. We're beginning, if I may just show you, we're beginning with things like the very first Superman.
What? You got that?
Well, this is a facsimile. We didn't bring the real one.
Okay, all right.
We're gonna have stuff like the very first Batman.
Let's hold some of these up here.
Sure.
Hold some of that. That is the actual first issue of Batman.
We're gonna have books that people haven't seen in years. The first Spider-Man, the book that started it all in the 60s, the Fantastic Four. We're going to have some books which people may not have seen for years. Superman versus Muhammad Ali, for instance.
Okay, I know about that one. Yeah.
And of course, not to forget, we're also going to have great adaptations of the works.
Right, of the Holy Bible.
Of the Holy Bible, the books of Genesis. Very, very, very tastefully done. Very, very tastefully done.
This is great stuff. I hope you guys are going to start working towards taking this thing into the schools and start changing people's attitudes, because we have a real problem in the country. Okay. Kids don't want to read anymore.
No.
That's the situation. Maybe this can actually start helping?
Yes, it can. Actually, I think we've been in contact with Clive Panton.
We've been in contact with Clive Panton from Field towards donating a whole bunch of comics as well to schools.
What about getting some reading sessions together?
We plan to do that, but again, it's difficult to put these things together because people have this negative attitude. So first we must break the negativity, and then we can move forward. We've also allied ourselves to some degree with the Literacy Volunteers of Chicago, where we plan to get a lot. They use comic books heavily in their remedial reading classes for slow learners in North America.
I see.
So we plan to get a lot of stuff in from them and donate those to the schools as well. So hopefully if we lay the groundwork well enough, then the perception that comic books are a waste of time and a waste of effort will be gone, and then we can move in with a new attitude towards elevating them to the status I think they deserve to have.
We're talking Comicon 2 here, which is Saturday, November 20th, and we're talking comics here on TNT this morning. We'll be back. Please stay with me.